Sure, he's a jerk and a bully, but he's your jerk and your bully. Don't try to change him, just redirect him. He's like your team's bulldog or bouncer, Saber said. Maybe you're right. I know I am. You've got one difficult one. I have 4, sometimes 5 on my team. Never 6? Darkspeed joked. No, I am not the difficult one on my team, Saber said with a straight face as he walked down the street with his friend. Near the coffee shop, they saw Inferno sitting outside at a table. Inside, Bioforce and her father were just saying goodbye. We need to find another alley, Inferno said as he rose. I can't wait for you to see Sao Paulo, Virtuoso said to her team. Soon after another alley drill, the team found themselves standing in a lush green yard behind a large white villa. The air was warm, and the sun high overhead in a blue sky. Welcome to Brazil, a man's voice from the house called. Daddy! Virtuoso said as she dashed to the house. The others followed behind, looking at the manicured lawns and ocean view. What body of water is that? Aid asked. That's the Atlantic, she said. The girls were still holding close to each other like they were still shopping. Olympian was looking for a place to ditch all the bags he collected. Darkspeed had already searched around the grounds at high speed. Mr. and Mrs. Zavaleta introduced themselves and did their best to make everyone feel welcome. On the terrace facing the water, they shared a Spanish-inspired lunch. As per Mr. Zavaleta's instructions, their cook went with seafood rather than pork, which is the Spanish preference. The members of 8th Team were unaware of the manners which were being displayed in the choices of food. After lunch, many of the alphas showed signs that it had passed their bedtime. Bioforce and Virtuoso attended to their traveling companions, and soon they were good as new. They did what they could do for each other, but were still tired. I have the best hammock for taking a nap upstairs. I think a warm spring breeze is just the kind of break we need, Virtuoso said to Bioforce. Go ahead and take a nap, Mrs. Zavaleta said. I'll take your friends down to the beach for some swimming and fun. A nap sounds so good right now, Bioforce said. What about swim trunks? She said as she overheard. I can make nanomail shorts, Midas blurted. No, I can make cloth, Virtuoso said. Mrs. Zavaleta held up hands to both of them. We have extra suits for everyone down in the pool house. Don't fret, the unsuper method of planning ahead still works. You have a pool and your own beach? Midas asked. Yes, we do. Now get trunks from the pool house before we hike down to the beach. After some fuss in the girls' side of the pool house, the female members of the team came out all wearing t-shirts on top of their bathing suits. Mrs. Zavaleta wore a bikini with a piece of cloth tied around her waist. What took so long? Darkspeed asked to make sure all was well. The girls said they didn't want to wear bikinis in front of the boys, Mrs. Zavaleta said. The Brazilian-raised mother thought nothing of the bikini. Oh well, the other boys are already down there. Can anyone see us on this beach? The girls in Darkspeed made their way down the beach. Why? Midas is down there building sandcastles so the others can wreck them. I don't think that should attract much attention, Mrs. Zavaleta replied without hesitation. What has your daughter told you about her teammates? She asked as they neared the beach. Mostly about how you get along in your studies, Mrs. Zavaleta answered. Through the lush green vegetation they heard a dull thud that reverberated through the ground. Make the next one bigger, they heard in the distance. The group picked up speed down the path. As they cleared the path, the sight was something unexpected. A castle made of sand standing 40 feet tall took up a good portion of the beach. Greco and Olympian were pounding on the castle and destroying large sections of the exterior. Midas was standing, pale and in shorts, with one hand extended toward the castle. The structure seemed to heal instantly from any blow they would strike. Mrs. Zavaleta looked dumbfounded at the sight. Darkspeed tried to bring her back to his world. I asked if anyone could see this beach. No. Well, yes, from the water, Mrs. Zavaleta finally got out. Darkspeed took his sandals off and said, Excuse me. Darkspeed raced out onto the water, running on the smooth surface the same as if it were earth. Mrs. Zavaleta barely noticed him gone when he returned. There are a few boats out a little too far to see. Some smaller boats close to shore will be here in 20 to 40 minutes. You don't know? She asked. I'm just guessing at their speed. To me they look frozen. I have to kind of guess by the way the boat looks in the water. Oh, so you need like a reverse near-miss indicator. Something that will project speed and direction of a perceptively frozen object, she said as her combat sense warned her of something. She turned to jump from a wave of water that was sent her way. Less brain talk, more fun. Olympian said as he was filling up a giant red sand pail the size of a barrel. Midas, did you make that for Olympian? She yelled as she made distance from Mrs. Eveletta. I didn't know what he was going to use it for, Midas pleaded. Olympian flew at She with the full bucket in his hands. She turned invisible and repelled herself from the ground to be above Olympian. Olympian paused to see where she was. She maneuvered herself onto his back and used her power to violently pull the bucket up toward her. The bucket crushed into Olympian and split its contents upon him. Olympian spun around to grab She, but she was gone. He felt around wildly for the invisible Alpha, but didn't know where she was. Olympian, get down here, Inferno said. Olympian was quick to get in front of the coach. Inferno lectured him about someone getting hurt while having fun. He called the others around and gave them the same lecture. The Alphas made their way around the beach a little slower. Who would like to paddle out into the water? Mrs. Eveletta offered. We have paddle boats and a couple of jet skis. After the lecture by Inferno, the boys let the girls take the jet skis out first. The boys had to settle for the paddle boats. Olympian offered to do some fishing for Mrs. Eveletta. She accepted, and after Midas made a net, Olympian was gone underwater. The other boys decided to paddle out and watch the girls ride the jet skis. Midas teamed up in a paddle boat with Darkspeed. His thinking was that the fastest kid would also paddle the fastest. Why don't you use your telekinesis to push us into the water? Darkspeed asked as they started out. Connors was saying something about my power and me having difficulty controlling it. He knew I was telekinetic and didn't tell me, Midas said to Darkspeed. Did he say why he didn't tell you? He said I needed to learn more control before I started using telekinesis. He made a funny face and said it was dangerous. I think he's got a big dose of mother hen in him. Look, we're all potentially dangerous. You almost hurt people in your hometown when your power showed up. When I was 8, I was running up and down the highway not too far from my house. I wasn't doing anything important, I just liked running. Well, for some reason or another, my power that causes a friction-free field around me went down. I didn't mean to cause a sonic boom on the side of the freeway that day. I ran for a half a mile before I noticed the windows blowing out of cars behind me. Accidents littered the road. Ambulances were called. It was even on the news. I was lucky that no one died that day. After that, my father started taking me out into the desert to run on Saturdays. It was 3 years before I was allowed to move fast like that near anybody. Big powers can mean big danger, especially if the person with the power isn't used to controlling it. I never knew that. It must have been hard on you not using your powers. Not too bad. I still used my powers plenty, just not outside of the home. Say, why don't you try to use your powers now? Here? Sure. Gently move the boat. I'm in no hurry. Take as long as you like and move the boat very slow at first. Midas closed his eyes and felt the boat around him until he had a good lock on all of its properties. How do I control the speed? If I just force the boat to move, it might jump or break. Easy, just like when I run. Think of the boat and the water as partners. Make the water flow past the boat, but only one part of the water at a time. Think of it as a stroke from the paddles, rather than a jet engine. Try one soft push, then go from there. Midas thought for a moment and did as Darkspeed suggested. The boat lurched forward about 20 feet like a dolphin jumping on the water. Midas and Darkspeed had to hang on hard as the boat jumped. There, not dangerous. Try again. And try to make it smoother, Darkspeed said reassuringly. Midas felt into the boat and water again, preparing for another push. The boat pushed forward into the water at about half the force as before. Midas didn't want to lose the feeling he had as he reduced his force and did it again, then again. You're doing it, Darkspeed said. Midas didn't answer. He kept concentrating on what he was doing. The boat's speed seemed to be evening out and moving through the water smoother. Then, the boat started to pick up speed and make its first turn. Darkspeed had to place a hand on Midas to keep him from falling out of the boat. Lean the boat when you make it corner, Darkspeed said to him. Right. Midas kept thinking to himself how a regular boat would move when it had to make a corner. I bet a plane would be the same thing, Midas thought to himself. Midas' eyes lit up as another thought crossed his mind. Darkspeed looked around at the girls who were riding two to a jet ski. She pointed at Darkspeed with excitement on her face. She screamed something he couldn't hear. Darkspeed looked down at the boat he was riding in. We're not touching the water, Darkspeed said loudly to Midas.